Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. This is Bronx Council Member Vanessa Gibson of District 16 in the Bronx. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to our cooking demo on how to prepare a healthy meal with Thanksgiving leftovers. I want to certainly recognize our incredible community partners, FAN4Kids, for hosting this virtual cooking demo, and our amazing instructor, Miss S, for joining us to conduct tonight's lesson. All of you should know the amazing work that FAN4Kids does every day of every year in our community in the Bronx, but also all over the Bronx and New York City. They work with children, our parents, many of our schools, local community organizations, and use a holistic approach to bring healthy living and wellness into our schools and right into our homes. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when unfortunately we lost thousands of New Yorkers, but many New Yorkers survived the COVID-19 pandemic, FAN4Kids was out hosting many virtual events for students and their families. So even though many of us were working remotely from home, the work did not stop. We understand the Bronx remains number 62 of all the counties in New York State. We are the unhealthiest county in all of New York State. And those numbers are alarming and speaks volumes to the work that we must continue to do around farming, urban agriculture, access to nutritious meals, health and wellness, everything that we can do to make sure we take care of our health and our body, our mind, and our spirit. We have hosted several virtual health and wellness events since the pandemic started. We've done Zumba, we've done meditation. Want to urge you guys, meditation is truly the way to go. And we will be joining many of our partners later on this month for a virtual hip hop fitness class. So we have been dancing, we've been cooking, we've been doing everything because it's really important that our families understand that they're not alone. So many families have been struggling. They've lost income. They have lost revenue, fallen behind in rent, struggled to maintain their household. Their children are working remotely, access to health care, health and wellness, and getting tested for COVID. You know, so much of what we've seen the last several months has really been a test of our strength. So first and foremost, I thank you, FAN4Kids, because you recognize that we are all in this together, no matter what. From neighborhood to neighborhood, from block to block, we are in this together. And now, unfortunately, as we are seeing an unfortunate uptick in some of our neighborhoods with positive COVID cases, particularly in our district on the west side in Highbridge and other parts of the district, we are urging everyone to please get tested. COVID-19 remains here, and it is a serious thing, and we must protect ourselves. Thanksgiving is coming up, and we know there are additional restrictions that the governor is putting on restaurants and bars and gyms and fitness centers. So we want to urge all of you to please be safe. The work that we're doing, we can do virtually. We don't have to be outside. And if you don't have to be outside, then please do not go outside, only for essential services. As the council member for District 16, I've been proud to fund FAN4Kids since the beginning of FY15. And every year I've given them money to support the work they're doing in our schools, particularly PS 73 on Anderson Avenue and other parts of our school district. And very, very thankful that in this adopted budget, FY21, that we passed in July, we were able to allocate $10,000. So while I don't have the check in front of me, I have a big ceremonial check for FAN4Kids for $10,000 so you can continue the work you're doing. I look forward to our continued work. Thank you so much for everything. At the end of the day, families understand that they're not alone. We have to do our part to assure them that we are here for them every step of the way. So enjoy tonight's cooking demo. Thank you again to our amazing instructor. Thank you, Miss S. Thank you, FAN4Kids. Thank you to the board, the executive team, and everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, guys. God bless.
Thank you. This is Rob Oliver. I'm founder and CEO of FAN4Kids, and I can't follow that up.
Love you, Rob.
Honestly, hello, council member. So that's just too hard to follow up. So all I'm going to say is I want to loudly and profoundly thank the council member for not only all the stuff that she does in the community, but that continued support of FAN4Kids. She's been our, since 2015, been our #1 fan and champion, and really enables us to do our job and to do what we need to do in the Bronx. So she threw out all the statistics, and that's why we're fighting hard to be in the Bronx, and that's why we're fighting hard. And you know, I'm going to quote a line from Hamilton: "Is we all have to rise up. We have to rise up above the 62 out of 62." I'm tired of hearing that number. And the community, we have to believe. We really have to believe, and we have to advocate, and we have to reach out in the community, and we really have to change within ourselves. We can help, but we need all of you to help us help you. And so we're here for that. And I just want to thank the council member for all she's done for the community and for FAN4Kids. So thank you.
Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead next. My name is Karen Shocklin. I'm the program director with FAN4Kids. And again, as Rob just said, we want to thank Council Member Gibson for all your support over these last years. It's been amazing for us. So I just want to give a quick rundown about what we're going to be doing tonight. Also wanted to share with everyone a little bit more detail about what FAN4Kids does. So I'll start with the background about FAN4Kids. We are a nonprofit service education organization. We actually go into the schools since 2004. We've been going into schools in New York and New Jersey, and we've been educating children and their families and working even with the staff on teaching them and educating them and giving them the tools, all that they need to become healthy and to lead healthy lives, specifically through fitness and nutrition. So we've been doing that for 16 years, and we've been growing ever since. And we really enjoy and we see the progress of the families that we're working with. And this is just one of the things that we've been doing. We actually go into the schools and educate the children during the school day on fitness and nutrition lessons. And then the goal is that they bring it home to their families and they teach their families what we're teaching them in the school day. In addition to that, we do parent workshops, family fitness events, all things like that related to fitness and nutrition. With the pandemic, we've gone to virtual mode, so we've been actually doing many family events and workshops through Zoom and other platforms. But this is just one of the examples of what we've done, since the spring. We're looking forward to doing more, and we'll definitely share our information with you as to when we're doing those. Ever since the pandemic has come across, it's really, really important, more so than ever, that we continue to educate and that everybody is really working to be healthy in terms of what they're eating. There's so many articles out there on what you're eating and the benefits to that in relation to COVID. Exercising is really important as well. And then, as Councilmember Gibson said, meditation and relaxation, whatever worked for you to do that. So we are really excited for today. Ms. S is going to be giving us some insight and some knowledge about how we can use our Thanksgiving leftovers to create 2 different recipes. They sound delicious to me. I'm really excited to learn about it myself. They're budget friendly. They're healthy. She's going to give you all that information in the workshop that's just coming up in 1 minute. So what we'd like to ask you to just take a look in the chat box. We've left some notes on making sure that you keep yourself on mute. If you have any questions, you can use the chat. Ms. S will be taking questions at the end, so feel free to stay around and to ask questions. We want you to get the most out of this workshop that you can. Please also follow us on our social media. Hopefully you guys will be making the recipes at least within the next few weeks, maybe right after Thanksgiving. And you can share your pictures, post them, and tag us with your pictures. When you make the recipes, we'd love to share them. And I think that's about it. I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. S. And again, thank you so much for coming. And we do have a poll at the end, so please stay on and you'll see it pop up on your screen, just a few questions so that we can get to know what you guys are interested in. But thank you again for showing up tonight, and I'll pass it over to Ms. S.
Hi guys, I'm Ms. S. This is my 2nd year teaching at FAN4Kids, and I'm really excited to get going and cooking with you guys. So today we are making two super fun and easy recipes. The first one is a turkey and rice soup. So it's perfect for after Thanksgiving. You have all that leftover turkey. You have some side dishes you want to get rid of, but maybe it's just a little bit too much to eat the same thing the next day. So this is an awesome way to use all your Thanksgiving leftovers, put them in one dish, and make one hearty, healthy meal. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you the ingredients. We're also going to supply you with the recipes. So if you want to follow along now or you want to follow along later, you will have all the ingredients and necessities to go ahead and make this recipe. So the first thing I like to do before I start cooking is getting all of my ingredients, my pots and pans, everything out. So I'm not like running to the corner and trying to grab something and then have everything burnt. So I have my pot in front of me. This is what I'm going to be using to make my soup. Really doesn't matter what kind of pot you have. If you have a taller one, a wider one, as long as your liquid is going to fit inside of it. And then I went ahead and I already cut up some of my veggies and the things for my soup. So the first and the main things that go in soup, you're always going to have onion, carrots, and celery. Those are pretty much your three ingredients I like to start every soup with. Number one, you're getting your veggies in right there. And number two, they add really great flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my gas on and I'm going to turn my pot on medium-high heat. You don't want it too hot because you don't want your vegetables to burn. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be using olive oil. So you can use canola oil. You could use margarine or butter if that's all you have at home. But as we're trying to be healthy and health conscious, it's better to use olive oil as it has less calories, has a little bit more flavor, and it's better for our bodies. So you can go ahead and once your pot is hot, it's just an empty pot, and then I'm just going to squeeze about a tablespoon of oil into the bottom of my pan. You don't need a lot of oil, you're just using it so your veggies aren't going to burn. And you're going to let it sit for about 30 seconds to a minute. Once your oil is nice and shimmery, that's how you know it's nice and hot. So you can kind of pour your oil around the pot. You can see how mine is getting nice and shimmery, catching the light. And that's how you know it's nice and hot. And once it's hot, when you pour your onions in, they're going to have that nice sizzling sound. So I'm going to wait one more minute for that to heat up. And then over here, I have my pre-cut onions. So this is one large onion. If you have a smaller onion, that's fine. And I cut it into about bite-sized pieces, medium cut. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be in your soup. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour my onions into my pot. So get all my onions in there and give it a little bit of a stir. And then the next thing I have is carrots. So I have baby carrots and I simply just kind of cut them into small pieces too. If you don't have baby carrots at home, that's okay. You can use any type of carrot, whether they're shredded, whether you have them from leftovers for Thanksgiving already, it doesn't matter. This is probably about 1 to 2 regular sized carrots, and I probably use 2 handfuls of baby carrots. So again, I'm just gonna add those carrots in, nice and simple. And the best thing about soup is you literally just dump everything into a pot and let it do its thing, and it's done. So that's super easy. And then next I have my celery. So I also have my celery nice and chopped up, just into bite-sized pieces. Gonna add that in there too. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a stir. You're gonna start hearing the sizzle, and you just wanna get some nice colors on those vegetables. And by doing this, you're really gonna get a lot of flavor. So a lot of people think that in order to get flavor into their soups, they have to use salt. And salt is great for flavor, but it's not so good for our health. So I'm actually gonna try avoid using as much salt as possible in this recipe. And when we go to the store and we buy canned soups, they're actually filled with sodium. They have a lot of salt in them, and to the point where you would actually be kind of surprised if you turned over the can of soup and realized how much sodium is actually going into that soup and how much you should be eating of it. So this way you can really control how much salt, how much fat you're adding into your recipe. And when you make it at home, it's much more delicious and it's actually much more cost efficient. So a super important thing we want to be mindful of is our budgeting. So after Thanksgiving, you may have spent a lot of money on all that turkey, all those sides, having your family together. So this is a great way to kind of backtrack, use all those ingredients, avoid using waste, and you can make some really delicious meals out of your leftovers when ordinarily they may just sit in your fridge or go to waste. So this is an awesome way that we can be health conscious by using less salt, less fat, and also by being budget friendly, by making sure we're using all of our food at home instead of having it go to waste. So now that our onions and celery have been cooking a little bit, I'm gonna add some garlic. So I have probably 2 to 3 cloves of garlic just chopped up. And I like putting in my garlic after my onions, because if you put garlic in first, it's gonna burn, and we don't want that. So I'm gonna stir in my garlic. And this is probably the longest part of the recipe, just kind of getting those onions and carrots and celery to start cooking. Once they've kind of cooked a little bit, you're gonna start to see your onions are gonna turn translucent. That means they're gonna go clear. And then you can start adding your other ingredients. So I said on the recipe, you can use any leftover vegetables. So today I have some sweet potatoes. These would be my leftover sweet potatoes from Thanksgiving. I made them the same exact way. Also super health conscious. I added a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, olive oil, and some paprika. Sometimes the simpler the recipe, the better they are. And I'm simply gonna dump that into my pot. Now you can use any vegetables you have at home or from Thanksgiving. So if you have peas and carrots, if you have Brussels sprouts, if you have green beans, mushrooms, anything you want, any veggie will do. You want to get as many veggies into your soup as possible, because it's important that we're actually eating all 5 of our food groups. So in FAN4Kids, we teach our students that there are 5 food groups. There is the dairy group, the protein group, the vegetable group, the fruit group, and the grains group. So between these 2 recipes today, we're pretty much gonna get all 5 in, which is awesome. So right now we have a bunch of vegetables. Next, we're gonna add our protein. So this is my leftover turkey. I cut it into little pieces. You can have them in big pieces, it doesn't really matter, however you like your soup. So again, just gonna dump my turkey in there. Gonna break it up a little bit. And then we're gonna add some seasonings. So what I find is that when I use other seasonings, things like paprika and garlic and onion or thyme, those are things that really flavor our food, because you know there's nothing worse than bland soup or bland food. But we don't have to add salt to get all that flavor. So I'm gonna add some fresh thyme. This is what my fresh thyme looks like. Fresh thyme. If you don't have fresh thyme, you can use jarred thyme also. And fun little fact, to get all the little leaves off, you simply hold it upside down and just push, and your thyme falls right off. Super easy. So I like using fresh herbs if I have them at home, because you get a lot of that flavor. But if you don't have them, that's perfectly okay. You can use whatever you have at home. And if you have other things like cumin, anything you like to cook with, you are more than welcome to add that into your soup. So I'm gonna go ahead, add some more of my thyme in here. I'm gonna grab some oregano, which is not fresh. I'm gonna sprinkle that in. And the best thing about cooking is you really don't need a measuring cup. You can kind of just splash things in here and there. I'm going to add, I like a little bit of spice, so I have some red pepper flakes. I'm gonna add some of those in here. And then what I like in my soup are bay leaves. So bay leaves are gonna give some extra flavor. So I'm just gonna grab 2 of these, put them in there, and then I'm gonna add my chicken stock or vegetable stock, whatever you have at home. I have my chicken stock here, and this is what it looks like. I like to buy it in a box, so it looks like powder. And then you just simply add water. You can buy ones that are already in a can. You just wanna make sure it's low sodium, because we wanna avoid using too much salt in our recipe. I'm gonna go ahead and pour my chicken stock in. So this recipe calls for about 6 cups. Got some more over here. You basically want your liquid to cover all of your ingredients. I'm gonna grab a little bit more water. There we go. And the last thing we have to add is our rice. So in this recipe also, after Thanksgiving, if you make a whole turkey, you're gonna have the whole carcass, that's all those bones from the turkey. And that actually adds really great flavor. So if you still have that carcass from your turkey, you can dump that right in. And then right before we serve it, we're just gonna take it out. But all things like the turkey bones are gonna add flavor, adding fresh herbs and spices, adding canned spices are all gonna make your soup super, super flavorful and really tasty to eat later on. So I also mentioned in the recipe, we're using rice. So I have leftover rice from Thanksgiving. So this is already cooked. So I'm gonna dump that in. If you're using regular rice, if you're using uncooked rice, you're just gonna add a little bit extra water because your rice is gonna absorb the liquid and you don't want it to be too thick. Also, a little friendly reminder, your rice, if it's already cooked, will get mushy, so you don't wanna add that in until right before you serve it, just so it's gonna be heated through. And that is just about how we make our turkey rice soup. So I'm gonna let this cook on the stovetop for the next portion of our demo, and I'm gonna move into the second fun, healthy recipe we are going to make. So if you do this on Thanksgiving, you can make that one first and then just let it sit, walk away from it, have your stovetop on low, and you can forget about it until it's time to eat. So I'm gonna actually move you over a little bit so we can move on to our next recipe. Out of the way. Okay, here we go. We have new pot. So our next recipe is going to be a mashed potato croquette. So I have my mashed potatoes here. So I'm a big fan of mashed potatoes. And normally once you make them, if you don't eat them straight away, they can get kind of almost like a glue consistency. So there's a lot of starch in potatoes. So potatoes, although some people say are a vegetable, they're more like a starch, so they're kind of in our grains group. So they're great because they're very filling and they're gonna give us energy, but when they're left over, they're not always as good to eat. So I'm gonna show you a fun way that we can spice it up and make them just as good to eat once they're a day or two old. So I have another bowl, and this recipe has pretty much 3 ingredients, super simple. And I'm just gonna take my mashed potatoes and I'm going to dump them into my bowl. Then, you can see them. Nice. Second ingredient is cheese. So cheese is in our dairy group. So now we're mixing our grain and our dairy and our veggie / grains together. So I have some mozzarella cheese cut up here. You can use any type of cheese you want. Just again, because we're being health conscious, if you use low fat cheese, it's better. So you can use any type of cheese, whether it's Parmesan, mozzarella, cheddar, whatever you have at home, whatever you like. Or if you don't want to add dairy to your potato dish, you can leave it out completely. So I'm gonna dump my cheese in there too. So that's my second ingredient. And then the last thing we're gonna do is just add some seasoning. So originally this recipe has chives in it, which is kind of a type of onion. So if you don't have chives at home, you can use scallions or green onions, or you can use regular onions. If you're gonna use regular onions, I would saute them, so I'd cook them in a stovetop beforehand. Otherwise, they may have a very strong raw onion taste to it. So if you can see, I have my cheese and my potato mixture. And because I don't have chives today, I am actually gonna use some fresh thyme. So again, I'm just gonna have some thyme leaves, put them in my potatoes. And you can add any other seasoning. So I'm also gonna add some garlic and some onion. You can use paprika, you can use cumin, however you like to season your potatoes, you're more than welcome. The more seasoning, the more flavor. And we're gonna avoid using salt because we don't want too much sodium in our nice healthy meals. Just a little more time. All right, now I'm gonna add some garlic. So I just have some regular granulated garlic. And again, just a little sprinkle. You can use a teaspoon if you like, but you don't really need to measure. I also have ground onion. And last but not least, I'm gonna use pepper. So you're re-seasoning your mashed potatoes. So if you've already put salt and butter in them, you don't really need to add much more because you already have that seasoning. But we're just gonna spice them up a little bit, and I'm gonna mix it up, which you can see I'm doing now. And then we get to the fun part. We're gonna shape these mashed potatoes into little croquettes. So I like to get my hands dirty in the kitchen, so I'm gonna put some gloves on. If your hands are washed, which they should be when you start cooking, you can go ahead and get dirty. And you're simply going to take a pretty decent scoop, about a tablespoon, plop it in your hand, and you're gonna shape it into a little patty. Just like that. You can make them a little bit bigger, a little smaller if you want, up to you. They might stay together a little bit better if you make them a little bigger. And they don't have to be perfect, just shape them into a little patty and then flatten them out a bit. So that's a little bit better. And then we are going to pan sear them. So we're not gonna fry them because that's not so healthy, but we're still gonna use a little bit of oil to get a nice little crispness on our potato croquettes. So I'm gonna go ahead and again, turn my saute pan to a medium heat. You don't wanna make it too hot because your croquettes will burn. And again, I'm gonna use about 1.5 teaspoons of olive oil. So again, olive oil is probably the best oil you can cook with. It has the most flavor and it's the best for you. So again, we're just gonna let that heat up. I have a little bit of oil and you're gonna let it heat in the pan until it's nice and shimmery. In the meantime, I'm gonna stir my soup. It's starting to smell really nice with all those flavors, all those herbs and spices. I'll have everyone coming into the kitchen asking when dinner's gonna be ready. Okay. So, while we're waiting for this to heat up, we can talk a little bit about turkey and how we make our Thanksgiving meals. So, some people may fry their turkey, some people may put lots of butter on their turkey, but that's all kind of things that aren't so great for us. So what I like to do is I like to actually soak my turkey in a brine, which is a salty solution, and I let it sit overnight. So that way it actually absorbs its flavor, and when you cook it, it doesn't dry out too much. Because a lot of the times, by the time you serve your turkey on Thanksgiving Day, it's dry and it's not so good. So then you want to smother it in either gravy or cranberry sauce, which is all very delicious, but is it so healthy? So this way you can have a nice, fresh, juicy piece of turkey on Thanksgiving. And instead of using butter to brown it, you can buy something called browning spray, or you could even get amino acids, and that's gonna give your turkey this nice brown look, but you're not adding extra fat to it. And I also like to add my fresh seasonings and making sure I'm really filling up my turkey with all those Thanksgiving flavors, so it's super tasty. But my pan looks just hot enough, so I'm gonna take my little potato croquette, I'm gonna place it in the pan, and you're going to cook each side for about 2 minutes, just enough so they brown on each side. So while that one's cooking, I'm gonna make some more little potato croquettes. And this is fun to make at home. If you have young kids, you can have them in the kitchen doing this with you. It's a good way to get everyone involved. And because these are all leftovers from Thanksgiving, it's pretty easy because it's already made. So you're really just kind of forming things together and recooking them. So it's a fun way to have all your family together cooking in the kitchen, really getting them involved and having them understand what's really going into their food, because it's super important. Nowadays, people don't really know where their food is coming from or what they're actually eating. So you can tell them, or maybe they can tell you, if they have FAN4Kids at home, you can ask them, what food groups are these in? So we're making potato croquettes, so we have some dairy, we have some grains, and in our soup, we have tons of vegetables. We have our protein from our turkey. We have our grains from our rice, which we're gonna add back into our soup soon. So it's really awesome to get your entire family involved and have them learn some new things about the food that they're eating. So I can already hear that nice little sizzle in my pan for my potato croquettes. And the cheese is gonna make this nice flavor in them as well, which is awesome. And it's okay if they kind of fall apart and crumble. They don't have to be perfect. I'm gonna show you what they look like in the pan. So that's what they're looking like. And in another minute, we are going to flip them. And I can bring you over here and I'll show you what our soup is looking like. So, here's my soup. Starting to bubble a little bit, so it's nice and hot. And again, the longer you let it sit there, the more flavors are going to develop. So we didn't add salt to this recipe because it is, one, you have all the seasoning from all the vegetables that you had from Thanksgiving. And two, sometimes it's just not necessary. When we use other seasonings, we can still have flavor without using too much sodium, which is awesome. So I'm gonna have my little spatula over here and we're gonna see how our first croquette is doing. You can also, if you don't want to make these on a stovetop, if you're kind of in a time crunch or your family's doing different things, you can actually bake these in the oven as well. So you can make your little patties, throw them in the oven, cook them at about 375 for 10 minutes, and they'll do pretty much the same thing. And they'll be nice and crispy on the edges. So these guys are taking a little bit longer, but they'll be ready soon. And that is just about it for my fun, healthy cooking demo. So while those are cooking, if any of you have questions, you can go ahead and ask them, and I'd be happy to answer them. So you can just come off mute or raise your hand, whatever you feel more comfortable doing if you have any questions.
No questions, anyone?
For the croquette,
Yes.
when you say mashed potatoes, is that just that plain potatoes mashed up or with other stuff?
It really depends. So because this is a Thanksgiving leftover demo, if you make mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving, you can use those. But the potatoes I have here are simply just potatoes that have been mashed, and I added a little bit of butter to them so they were nice and creamy, and salt and pepper. But you could add garlic, you could add onions, you could add whatever else you like to add to them. But it's just the fact that they're leftovers. So we just want to be conscious of our budget and using all of our food so we don't have waste. So it's really up to you, however you like to make your mashed potatoes.
Because usually the mashed potatoes that I know has all that mayonnaise and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, would it be good to use it for that recipe? Or?
It may, if you have a lot of extra fat in your recipe already, it may be like a little too smushy. It may not like stay together as well. So because, I mean, I can tell you if you want to make healthier mashed potatoes to begin with on Thanksgiving, you can take your potatoes, you just boil them as regular. I peel them, I boil them. If you're using red potatoes, you can actually leave the skin on. They're pretty tasty. So you boil them till they're soft, drain the water, mash them up, and then I really just add salt, pepper. I like doing garlic. Sometimes I'll take some butter, like just a little bit, maybe like a tablespoon of butter, and I will saute my garlic in it already. So you have this nice, super flavorful garlicky butter, and then I'll add that into my mashed potatoes. So it gives it a little bit of creaminess, it gives it a lot of flavor, and then really sometimes the simpler the better. But I don't normally add mayo or too much butter or fat into my mashed potatoes. And honestly, a lot of people think that we have to add a lot of like spices or herbs or ingredients to your food, but sometimes the simplicity of the flavors of the foods you're eating really brings you back to what the foods are themselves. So you're more than welcome to try either way, but my potatoes today, besides for the thyme or the chives that you would add, they're pretty simple.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, no problem. Any other questions?
Yeah, when you throw the carcass into the soup, you take off the skin or leave it on? Would that add fat? Can you still get flavor out of the carcass without the skin?
Yeah, so the carcass is really just the bones of the turkey. So after Thanksgiving, you've already carved your turkey, people have eaten it. So you're really just taking the bare bones of that turkey, and all those bones are going to add a lot of flavor. So some of you may not know this, but when you buy chicken stock at the store, that's actually people just taking the chicken bones of a chicken carcass already. If you go to the supermarket and you have your prepackaged chicken, like just chicken breast, it's not a full chicken. So all the bones that they have left over, they'll take those bones, they'll put them in the oven and roast them. And then once they're roasted, they'll add them into a big pot of water and they just let it boil. And they'll add like peppercorns and maybe some carrots and onions and celery. And that's really what makes your chicken stock. Then from there, they're going to drain it and then they'll put it in their packaging and they sell it in the store. So your chicken carcasses or your turkey carcasses or your beef bones, those are what actually create the flavors that you're getting in your soups or sauces and gravies and things like that. So just make sure you actually take the bones out before you serve it because we don't want to be eating the bones.
Can you, Claudia, can you saute vegetables without using oil?
So you can. You want a little bit of something in your pan so they don't burn straight away. If you don't want to use oil or fat at all, you can just put them in the oven and like either bake them or grill them or roast them, and then you don't need to use as much fat. If you're not using any oil in your pan, I would just keep it at a very low temperature, and then the natural oils will come out of those veggies, but you just don't want them to burn. And there are other substitutes that you can use, or there's like Pam spray, which comes in like a spray bottle, so you don't have to use as much. I know some people can be heavy-handed when they're pouring in their oil, and then all of a sudden you kind of have this little pool at the bottom of your pan. So you can use both. I like to use a little bit of olive oil. I think it adds a little bit more flavor to it, but you definitely don't need a lot. So my potato croquettes are a little soft, but I'm going to try showing you what they look like.
Miss S, there's a question from someone here. Can you put dumplings in the soup?
Yeah, you can put dumplings in your soup. You could really put anything in your soup. That's one thing I really like about soups is you can pretty much take all your leftovers, dump them into your pot, add your water, and you let it sit there for about an hour. All those flavors are going to come out, and you actually get a really hearty, healthy meal. You could have just the soup as your entire dinner because you have so many vegetables, you have your protein, you have your grains, you have everything inside of it. So that if you have a nice big bowl of soup, you're actually going to get a very filling meal. So let me show you what this little croquette looks like, if I can get it. Doesn't want to cooperate with me today. 1 second. Okay, so because of all the cheese in this, it's kind of a little bit smushy, but so maybe making them in the oven would be a little bit better. You see that? So they're going to be a little crispy on the outside. They're going to be cheesy because of that nice cheese that we've added, and they're going to have a super nice, like a little bit of an onion flavor to them, or in this case, I added thyme. So you can really be creative. You can use any flavors you want, anything that you have at home. It's really up to you. If you want to add some extra spices in there, you're more than welcome. If you like keeping it a little bit more simple, that's okay too. So this one come out a little bit better, if you can see him. He's nice and crispy. And they're really tasty too. So it's like a nice, fun way to spice up the way that you make mashed potatoes at home or just potatoes in general. So they're all new options. They're healthy. They don't have a lot of fat or a lot of sodium in them. So they're health conscious and they're easy and quick.
Anyone else have any questions for Miss S? You can write it in the chat. Okay, can we air fry them instead of oil?
Yeah, that works totally fine too. So you could, if you have an air fryer, you could use your air fryer. If you just have your oven, you could bake them. I'd put them at a little bit of a higher temperature so they don't take as long to cook because your mashed potatoes are already cooked. So you just want that nice crispness to them. So when you bite into them, they're not mushy. But yeah.
Another question, do you really have to put cheese in there?
No, you don't. I said earlier, if you don't want cheese in them, you don't have to put cheese in them. I actually have my extra potatoes, and I'm going to make them without cheese for my dinner tonight. So you don't have to have cheese. Cheese will just give it more of like a gooiness, and you'll have a little bit of extra browning in there. But other than that, you don't have to add cheese. You could use fake cheese if you're a vegan, or you don't have to use it at all. Up to you.
Awesome. All right, I think we've run out of time. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We really appreciate everyone joining. Miss S, you did an amazing job. I think we're all, our stomachs are now growling, ready to make something, and some good knowledge about the health and savings of a budget for this. So again, thank you everyone. We are gonna have a poll, so it's gonna pop up right on your screen. We really appreciate if you are able to, there you go, should see it, fill that out for us. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Please, again, like we said, when you make these recipes, take pictures, post them to our social, post and tag them to our social media, and we would love to see them, to see you guys in action. We will be having more sessions, so keep a lookout for them. We will be sending information to you about when they'll be coming up. But thank you again for joining. I don't think Councilmember Gibson is on. Are you still on? We appreciate you partnering with us, and for everybody joining. Thank you again for making it a great night.
Great job, Claudia. Miss S, I mean.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you make these recipes at home. I hope you have fun. I hope you get your families involved. And I hope to see you guys next time for another fun cooking demo.
I love your kitchen.
Thank you.
Part of the class.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, someone.
Bye, Abigail.
Okay.
Bye, Miss Lewis.